everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us again today. Or if it is your first time joining one of our webinars, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. Happy Thursday, everyone. My favorite afternoon of the week. I am so excited to be here with you all today. We have a very, very exciting webinar lined up for you. Today, we will be talking about the key to retaining staff at your childcare center. I know that is a very important topic, a very challenging situation for many centers today. Welcome, everybody. As always, go ahead and post in the chat. Let us know where you are coming from today. Welcome. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. As always, we just want to give you a minute or two to settle in, grab your coffee, grab your tea, find a quiet spot if you can, close those office doors, and we're going to get started in just about 1 or 2 minutes. And as you get settled in, as always, write in the chat there and let us know where you're coming from today, where you are joining us. So let us know, is this your first webinar? Have you been to every single webinar we've had? We love to know. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm so excited for today's webinar. We are going to be talking about the key to retaining staff at your childcare center. I'm sure this is a topic that many of you can relate to, if not all. I know staff hiring and staff retention is quite a challenge right now. So we will get into it as soon as we let everybody in. Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining us, we will get started in about 1 minute. Again, we're talking about the key to retaining staff at your childcare center, such an important topic. For everybody here with us today, please know you will receive your certificate of participation and you will get it by early next week. So as always, don't worry if you don't see it today. Don't worry if you don't see it tomorrow. You will absolutely be getting it by early next week. And just a big thank you for all of you. I know how busy all of your days are, for taking the time to be here with us on a Thursday afternoon to learn about the key to staff retention at your childcare center. I'm so excited to dive into this with you. We're going to wait about 30 more seconds. Again, grab your coffee, grab your tea, listen to a few more seconds of our music, and we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If you're just joining, go ahead and settle in. Let us know in the chat where you are coming from. And it is officially 2 o'clock Eastern time. So we are going to get started. Quick cut off to the music there, but I do want to make sure we can maximize our full hour. Again, everybody, welcome. Happy Thursday. We're so excited to be here with you today and talk about the key to retaining staff at your childcare center. Very, very important. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that we just want to talk to you about today is a little bit about what is going on the social side of Hi Mama. So I'm going to bring my lovely co-host Kaya on to talk a little bit about that. Welcome, Kaya.
Thanks so much for having me, Maddie. Super excited to be back on another wonderful sunny Thursday here in Toronto. I just wanted to share with our community, we have so many amazing, fantastic resources available to our early childhood educators. They are available on our blog, and they're also available actually in our private Facebook group called Circle Time. I'll put a link in the chat here if you'd like to join. There's tons of resources in there, and one of our most popular ones right now is actually a sign language resource. So we've created this really handy American Sign Language resource for educators to print out. We've noticed actually a lot of educators are using sign language, not only with their infants and toddlers who aren't really speaking, but with preschoolers and even school agers as a way to communicate. And I think it's so fabulous to hear. So I'll put the link in our chat right now if you'd like to join and check out that free resource.
Thank you so much, Kaya. That sounds amazing. If you're not in the Circle Time Facebook group, I'm in there as well, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of great ideas and conversation happening. So definitely check it out. As well, if you have not heard of our Hi Mama activities, I highly recommend you check that out as well. I know time is tight in early learning, and it is hard to find the time to get out of the classroom and do activity planning, lesson planning, program planning, all of that you have to do to keep the classroom running. And we're here to help you with that. On our Hi Mama activities, we have hundreds of activities available, and you can search by domain, by age, by theme. You can save your favorite ones based on what you're observing the children are interested in, and you can sign up to receive these activities straight to your inbox. Kaya will post a link in the chat as well for that. Keep an eye out for it to receive some of these amazing activities to help you out. As always, before we get started, we just want to do a quick disclaimer. So again, the content that we're sharing with you today is not personalized legal or financial advice for your center. The goal today is that you gain some really great tips, tricks, and strategies for you to bring into your classrooms, into your centers, into your homes, and that you take away with you today. But if you are looking at making any big changes at your center, we do just want to make sure you are consulting the right people, such as a legal or a financial advisor. We are now going to give a quick listen to our land acknowledgement.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
And we're now going to give a listen to our diversity and inclusion statement.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
Okay, and a few housekeeping pieces before we get started as well. We are recording today's session as always, so if for any reason at all you do have to pop off, do not worry. You will receive the recording and the slides in the show notes email by early next week. If you do require the closed captions, just be sure that you hit that CC tab on your Zoom and know that we are also recording with the CC on as well for the recording that will go out. Again, in regards to the certificate of participation, for everyone who is joining us live today, you will receive the certificate of participation by early next week. So again, don't worry if you do not see it in your inbox today or tomorrow, we will get that to you by early next week. And lastly, if you're having any issues at all with your Zoom, we certainly hope that you don't, but if for any reason something does come up, we just want to make sure you are contacting the right people who can help you. So please contact support.zoom.us. They know their product the best and will be able to get you the help that you need. Okay, and welcome to Hi Mama. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I love to see all the new names. So if this is your first time joining our webinar, please let us know in the chat. And thank you so much for being here. We're so happy that you found us. So if you don't know what Hi Mama is, we are a childcare management app. Our goal at Hi Mama is to support educators, directors, administrators, and families in making their lives easier through seamless parent communication, photo and video sharing. You can do your billing, your assessments, your lesson planning. It's all available right in Hi Mama to make your lives as easy as possible. If you would like to learn more, Kaya will post a link in the chat, or she may have already, and we would love to show you around and see if Hi Mama is something that can support you at your center. And just know, if you do join the Hi Mama family, you will get world-class support. I can absolutely promise you that. I used to be on our support team, so was my lovely co-host Kaya, and we can say with firsthand experience that the support team is the loveliest group of humans waiting to help you out and support you in making this transition at your center. If you also didn't know, on top of the webinars that we do every week, we also have podcasts that are released as well, and they're absolutely fabulous. Again, hundreds of activities and articles going out as well. And if you didn't know, Hi Mama is also a B certified company. And what that means is as we work with our fabulous Hi Mama customers, we are also actively working to make a positive contribution in the early childhood education space. Okay, and finally, again, if this is your first time joining us and you've never met me before, my name is Maddie. I am one of the early childhood educators here at Hi Mama. I'm also our customer advocacy specialist, and of course, your host of our Hi Mama Helps webinar series. As always, my lovely co-host Kaya, oh my gosh, stumbling on all my words today, is here with us. Kaya, do you want to come back on and share a little fun fact about you today?
Not necessarily a fun fact about me, but a fun fact about our guest today. Jane Ann was actually our early childhood educator of the year for 2020. So she is basically a celebrity here at Hi Mama. She has provided so much knowledge to our audience through her podcast and her last webinar with us in 2021 and 2020. She's been in our network for years now, it seems. So I'm super, super excited to welcome back our ECE of the year for 2020. If you need any support, throughout this webinar, I'm here on chat, so just let me know.
Thanks so much, Kaya. I couldn't have done a better introduction myself for our amazing special guest, Jane Ann Benson. Jane Ann is the founder of Early Childhood Ally. Jane Ann, welcome. Come on. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so excited to have you.
Hi, good to see you. Hold on,
Thank
let me
you
start
so
my
much.
video. Yeah.
Oh, good. Jane, thank you so much for being here with us today. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, a little fun facts, something going on with you today?
Sure. I retired from a full-time director job during the pandemic, and but am working still part-time in a coach position and also do some coaching of individuals in early childhood. And I'm loving that work. I'm still really connected to the community of early childhood. So yeah, so it's been great. And I love the work I've done with Hi Mama too. It's been fun. And I have an Instagram page, which is the Early Childhood Ally. And I also have a monthly newsletter. So you can go to Early Childhood Ally website and you can sign up for my monthly newsletter. It keeps me busy.
Amazing. Well, Jane, thanks so much for being here with us today. I know Jane Ann and I were chatting a little bit just before we opened up the webinar, and I know she has some great content to share with you. So I won't take up any more of your time. Jane Ann, I'm going to pass the stage over to you.
Great. Good. So before we dive in, I realized that as I was preparing this topic, that I was making some assumptions about what people are already doing. And so before we kind of dive into some of the information around appreciation and motivation, I wanted to make sure that we also highlighted some other things that are foundational. First, I understand the compassion fatigue that people have right now, and decision fatigue also, particularly for people who are leaders of their programs or leaders in their classroom, and working with people who have compassion fatigue and decision fatigue. So I understand that, and give yourself grace as we go through this. And if you're feeling paralyzed by, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that, or just all I would hope for today is that you find one thing that you might be able to take from our time together today that you might try. So I really am here as your cheerleader, and I hope that you will find something today that resonates with you. However, I'm also going to push because I think that's part of what makes us stronger, is doing that. So that being said, some assumptions that I'm making, and is that leaders are going to be embracing feedback from staff. And right now, leaders are getting probably a lot of feedback from staff, and from those I'm coaching in the buildings I'm in, I'm hearing that. But also, as you're getting feedback, what are you doing with that? Are you taking surveys of staff on a very regular basis that's anonymous to get the pulse of what's happening in your program? So that's sort of a baseline. Are you doing that? Are you demonstrating trust and mutual respect? That's one of the things I hear over and over again from teachers in the field, how that is really a tipping point around, can they really trust their leader? Are you advocating for higher wages, planning time, meaningful professional development, and best practices? So how are you even keeping score of that? How are you internally looking at those sorts of things? And how are you being transparent with staff about that? And again, thinking about it as far as some people were able to get higher wages during the pandemic, but is that something you're going to be able to continue to do for those that are staying with you? This is a big one, is really onboarding new staff, and what is your plan and are you sticking to it? One thing that I've heard over and over from people is just that they feel like onboarding is something that they need to do better. So what's one thing you can do better about onboarding staff? Because it's clear that when we onboard staff in a way that they feel welcomed and committed to the program, you're going to retain them. And it is so much time and money to bring staff on that you really have to see that as an investment. So what is your plan for onboarding? How is it done? Are you taking shortcuts with it? How can you strengthen it? And exit interviews are really a must. And right now, some of those exit interviews might be really painful. And thinking about how do you do an exit interview process with staff who are leaving on a fairly quick basis. But that information can really be helpful to you as you start to say, how am I going to retain staff? You really have to have those surveys and that feedback because it's also intertwined together. And the other part that I think we don't talk enough about is everybody might need something different. And that's hard to keep track of. If you have, 25 or 35 staff, even if you have 10 staff, how is it that you know everybody needs something a little different? And how do you keep track of that? How do you know your staff well enough to be able to know what is it that they need and how can you help to meet those needs? So I wanted to make sure we talked about that. The other thing is that I have been having conversations with programs that have not had a great deal of turnover and trying to really glean from them what are they doing that maybe others aren't. And those programs run the gamut. Some of them are small programs, some are large, some are nonprofit, some are for-profit. And I think that in all other ways, we always go to best practice of how people who are doing it right to learn from them. So I think that one of the things I heard over and over was that they had a plan. And they onboarded staff, that they create this culture of mutual respect. And they also did have been able to raise wages and be able to give stipends and some of those things too. In the chat box right now, though, I'd love to have you just pop in there and something good that's happened this week, either to you or in your program to share with everybody, because I think that it's important that we really do build on all the good stuff that happens too. So, okay, next slide. And next slide. So one of the things we're going to talk about is motivation. And the reason or action for behaving a particular way. And really, I'm not going to go through all the research, but it clearly shows that the leadership style impacts motivation for staff. And are you getting feedback on your leadership style, and if it's working for your staff? That takes some pretty deep reflection, and it is important though. Are you able to give staff what they need, and what that looks like, and how you can make a plan for that? A reward system. One of the things I've heard over and over from staff and those in the field and leaders also is that people who aren't really doing their job are still being rewarded. So do you have a clear system of what that looks like? Do you have a clear evaluation system with when people get raises, and is there observation feedback and reflection and meaningful professional development and all of those sorts of things? So think about that, and think about, are you surveying staff around that too? I know you're going to be tired of hearing that. I saw someone that got to mentor students. That's one of my favorite things to do. So an organizational climate. In the first part, when I first started talking, we talked about organizational climate. That it comes around over and over when I talk to programs that are having not as much turnover challenges. They talk a lot about the organizational climate, how they're there to support one another. They trust the people. They feel committed. And it does not necessarily line up that they're being paid the most, or even, I mean, they're certainly being paid a livable wage and have some benefits. But I think we need to think about that also. The structure of work. We know that one thing that COVID has done for everybody, we've all heard the big resignation. And I think one of the things that I hear over and over is the work rewarding that they're doing? And so helping staff, sometimes we have to help each other figure out, why are we doing what we're doing, and why is it really important? And that might be even doing a documentation panel of your staff in action, or if it's your classroom, highlighting, all those wonderful things that you're doing and why it's so important. But there's also another function about the structure of work is, are you able to be flexible? And I have heard this in programs that are not having as much difficulty with turnover, is that they've been able to be more flexible with their work schedule, working, some people are working 3 10-hour days, and then they're able to be off a couple of days. That's helped them with some other barriers that they've had. So thinking about those things, that all of those things combined for motivation, and if there's anything that you can glean from that of one thing, do you have a reward system? I mean, everything from, do people know when their next raise will be and what it will entail? And are there clear job descriptions and policies? And all of that reward things also connect back to our onboarding of staff and what they should expect. Over and over, I hear from staff and leaders, that it's difficult when you don't know what to expect. And over the last few years, that has been, I think, one of the challenges. So think about those things. Okay, next slide. So real quick, appreciation is the recognition of good qualities of someone or something. Appreciation is part of the motivation. Different things motivate staff. So this is the part that I like to think about love languages. And I personally just had a list of all of the staff and how they needed feedback, and what motivated them. And that helped me to think about how I interacted with them, and that each week I kept track of how was I interacting with staff. And if I got to the end of the week and I didn't have a really genuine interaction, because that's the piece also that comes through in the programs that are really having some wins, is that their staff really feel like that any sort of appreciation is really genuine and that it is really meaningful. And we've all had appreciation where it just felt like it was a box that was being checked off someone's list. And so I think that that's going to be really important to think about. If you do something for everybody, how is there a way that you can somehow personalize it for those individual people to think about it? So like an example was, when I've done gift cards for people, I've asked like 3 or 4 different places that they want to pick from, so that not everybody wanted Target. I'm not sure why not, but not everybody did. So, and thinking about not everyone wanted a coffee shop either. So thinking about that. And our leadership style, we talked about that before, impacts motivation. So really think about those bosses that empowered you. I had a conversation actually on Monday with someone about how they had worked with a boss before that really just motivated them, that they wanted to do more for, that they wanted to be better for, and their current boss really wasn't able to fulfill that for them. And it was awesome. She was super reflective about that, and we were able to do some brainstorming about that. But think about that. Think about what is it that your staff needs. And again, this is heavy work here, but how are you empowering the staff? Because that comes through also in the research, that staff want to have more opportunity to give feedback and be able to have more autonomy in their work. So what do you think that looks like, the structure of the work? What do you think it looks like in early childhood? And being able to think about that. So, okay, next slide. So how does this all relate to retention? So I've been reading a lot about it, and it's very clear. 67% of employees who would put energy into their work if they were recognized more often. And that really was across the board on professions. 63% who are recognized are very unlikely to look for a new job. So that really tells us not only would they put more energy into it, but they also are going to stay. 52% feel that their reward strategy isn't aligned to the company's organizational goals. And that really stopped me to think about, like, what does that mean? Like 50%, about half of the employees felt that the rewards didn't line up with the organizational goals. So as you think about that, what the plan is, what is your plan for showing motivation and appreciation, but also looking at how that connects with the climate of your organization? How does it all meld together? If we say, and as I talk to people about this, if we say that we respect our staff, but yet our reward system isn't mirroring that to staff, that really that sort of tension isn't what we're looking for. In the same breath, we hope it does connect to do that. And then the last kind of statistic is the lack of recognition and engagement is driving 44% of employees to switch jobs. And that number is ticking up every week. And in our field, that is something that we really have to think about. And I know it's hard to ask staff or people like, what is it? What is it we can do? And what are we doing? And it is really hard right now. And that's why when we go back to the beginning of the presentation, when I said, I get that we have compassion fatigue and decision fatigue. And it's okay if you're like, you know what? I don't know that I can get that sort of feedback from staff right now. Like, to hear from them that they are really unhappy. Like, I know they're unhappy, but it's really moving to that next stage. So we know that they're unhappy, but what would make it better? And I think that when we can drill down on what can it make it better, before we went live, we were kind of joking, like, what, the candy bar, that you might get, or a special treat, doesn't really matter if you don't believe that you have any input or any recognition of your work. The candy bar is not going to make the difference for you. But if you are, if you're recognized that you know that your people really understand your gifts, and you're given a candy bar and it's your favorite candy bar, like it just sort of, it's the best of, every scenario. And it doesn't have to be the candy bar. It can be the bath bomb. It can be, whatever. So you have to think about it that way. And what question are you going to be vulnerable enough to ask? And I do think staff will give feedback, particularly when they feel like that they're not going to be, there's no negative that's going to happen because of it, that it's all around how do we go from good to great? And that looks different because not every classroom needs the same good to great. And it might not even be good right now. It might be just survival, to be able to get to fair. Okay, next. Being a leader is so hard right now. And being a leader during a pandemic is next level. So real talk, let's just talk about it. What gets in the way? So you can pop in the chat box and do that too. I'm going to start on it. Okay, next slide. So these are the things that I know and I hear, because these are things that for us as leaders have been as long as forever. Time. All of us, there is only so much time in the day. And as we're trying to create healthy boundaries, and that is one of the things we've heard in the Great Resignation things, is that people are taking, are really taking time to think about, like, do I want to put all this energy into a job? And like, why? That people are really trying to create boundaries. And I think that that's why having a plan, which I'm going to, again, kind of keep talking about, is being able to think about that. I saw someone pop in staff anxiety, and that is huge right now. Staff anxiety and mental health and trauma and all of that gets in the way too, because we have always been counselors and social workers and plumbers and, all those kitchen people and all those sorts of things. So those things gets in the way too. Lack of planning. And I really believe, and as I feel like I became to master the role of a director, I found it was my lack of planning that often was what got in the way. And that the more intentional and that I put into it, and being able to give myself to set my phone for 30 minutes, and all I'm going to do for the next 30 minutes is write these notes to staff. Or whatever it was. So fear, I talked about that just a minute ago. The fear of what gets in the way. Someone put lack of staff because you're always in the classroom or that sort of thing. And that's when, and a little bit later, I'll talk about that a little bit, about how we need to lean into each other so that maybe it's not just the director's role. I think it often falls on the leader of the program. But one of the things I found is that the more I could include the people that I worked with, either in the organization of doing something, the more buy-in it was for them too, because they were excited about doing it or planning it, or that was something, because they wanted to be part of the community. They wanted the morale to go up, and they understood how connected it was, in that it was important for me to be the person, to be the gateway, the lever for that. Energy is another thing that gets in the way, which I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There's only so much energy. Support. That there's not enough support. And again, I think that's that idea of, do you have a plan for just one or two things? So you're not making a 20-point plan. someone put severe behaviors in the classroom. And that is something that I think across the board, I did on my Instagram the last few weeks I've been doing. I had done some focus groups and emails and texts with people around COVID and the ongoing impact. And we've always had behaviors that are challenging in the classroom, but they certainly seem to have hit a much higher piece. And so thinking about that, and I'm not going to divert too much, but I do feel like that is one of the things that is that something that will really motivate staff, is being able to get support for that. And so it might look different of how you're going to show the appreciation. So resources also, that we don't have unlimited funds to be able to do things. But again, Forbes, this was just like last week in the Wall Street Journal, that Forbes reported that 67% of employees say they would work harder if their efforts were appreciated more. And when you think about that, like taking an audit of your day or your week of how am I showing staff that I work with, even if you're not the director, how am I showing that to the person in the classroom? How am I expressing appreciation to them by words even? So think about that. Okay, next slide. So low or no costs, and this is why that's the very first thing I said, positive, genuine feedback. And again, genuine is really the tipping point there for what I'm going to talk about. And one thing that I had started to do, and I still do sometimes, is voice memos. So if I had been in a room and I saw something that was fabulous, I'm like, I know I'm not going to be able to get back and write that down, but I do a voice memo and just text it to the person. And I've had so many people say, oh my gosh, I just loved getting that voice memo of, like, wow, what an awesome way you handled that really sticky situation with that family. I so am so grateful that you were able to do that. And it is really easy. And if you haven't ever used the voice memo on your phone, it's so easy to use. Sticky notes, I found, being able to have sticky notes just as I walked around, and being able to write those down and put it in people's office or in their planner. So when they opened it up and it said, you're a rock star, blah, 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 blah. And doing shout outs in your, a lot of people have weekly newsletters or monthly newsletters or whatever, and being able to really feature staff. I've had staff come back and just say, I just really, really appreciate that. One of the things when I retired, it was, I hadn't really realized how the appreciation notes that I was committed to doing were really something that motivated staff. And I sent at least a few times a year notes to their home address. And I even had done some ones where then put inside a blank note with an address to someone in the building for them to, send it on, kind of a domino effect. And, with a large staff of, sometimes 35 or more staff, that could only be done a few times a year, but I divided it up by months and all that sort of thing. So think about, is there a way to do that, or to enlist every staff member to write another staff member a note? Having pictures of your staff in action, documenting the work and the importance of the work they do, cover for an afternoon off that they're not expecting, is another way. A daily, weekly motivation. Quite a few of the programs I've seen that they've had quotes and, sticky notes in their bathroom, or asking like, what's one goal you have, this month that you're going to do, a personal goal that you're going to do this month. Jar of positivity. So people, when they come in and they're not feeling it, they can reach in there and pull out that piece. We didn't have parking right in front of our building, so parking spot for the day. Staff shout out board, I saw someone put in the chat box. Sidewalk chalk messages. I visited a program not too long ago, and they had the whole sidewalk in front of their building was just like shout outs to their staff. And I asked her who did it, and she said they actually had a group of parents that really wanted to just show their appreciation. And the parents had just, they had just bought really like one big bucket of chalk, and the parents had just, made sure they had every staff member like, you're the best, you're a rock star, and had everyone's name on it. One of the other things is people do a joke of the day and they just have it posted. And I think that's also something that's a really low to no cost thing. And then Trivia Thursday. So I visited a program last month on a Thursday, and it's a program that I know quite well. And I didn't realize that every Thursday they have this Trivia Thursday. And so I was there, and they had gotten the idea from another program. And so every Thursday they have a couple trivia questions, and then people post what they think the answer is. And then whoever is the winner gets, they have like a $5 card or whatever to that. So anyways, okay, next slide. So tried and true. Food is always great. Another thing is smoothie bar. That is something that is not super expensive. You can always ask families to just sign up to bring in yogurt or some fresh fruit, to do oatmeal, that sort of thing. We did ask families to support bringing in, lunches and meals. Not every program can do that. We also did individual items for each staff where they might get everything bundled together to take home to make pizza or spaghetti or something like that. We did volunteering together, and that really built an appreciation for the team. So we made meals we're right next to the Children's Hospital, and we made meals for the families who are living there. And so some people just brought the food in, and some people went and served the food. And so it was really a combination, and people really appreciated that, not only a connection to the community, but that sort of belonging that we all are together on it. Flowers, we did like plant succulents. We were able to get those at just like 99 cents, and just the little clay pots with it, gift cards, and then group experience. So, done like the spooky walk, or, the haunted walk through our town. But there's lots of those group experiences, even like a bonfire with s'mores. It doesn't have to be anything that everybody has to come to also, because when we talked in the beginning, you can't do something that's going to probably everybody's going to love. Not everybody's going to love flowers. Not everybody's going to love, a favorite cookie or whatever. But that those sorts of things are important. I mean, we had like an ugly mug club, where everybody brought in an ugly mug, and then we voted on who the ugliest mug was, and we had a hot cocoa bar. And the ugliest mug, got like their favorite coffee or whatever it was. So you have to think of those sort of ideas that are really easy to just implement, and not get too in your head about it. So I heard last week someone did a mani. Again, like obviously if you have a lot of males on your staff, they might not be interested in a manicure party, but everybody just brought all of their nail polish, and that night they stayed after and just had soup and salad, and they did manicures. And it didn't cost the program anything but space. So you have to be creative and thinking, what is it this group might like? And I think a lot of times they'll give ideas if they feel like it's something that you might implement. Okay, next slide. Share some of your favorite ideas. Okay, pop them in there. Okay, keep going. I want to make sure we can get through. Okay, a few new ideas that you might not have tried. Pinwheel fun. So one of the things I did with a program during the pandemic was, so the pinwheels now, where I'm at, there's dollar trees and, well, $1.25 trees, but we've all seen, there's sometimes like really big pinwheels, and some of them have flowers on, more like a flower. So how this worked is the staff member's name, and so they're just $1.25 for each staff. And in the middle is the staff name. And then we wrote on each petal about that staff, something like, creative and uh, always willing to open or whatever it was. And then we put those like on the walkway. So as staff came in, they saw all of those when they were both pinwheels and the flowers. So that was a really easy, we just did it with permanent marker. It was so fun. It was super festive. And of course, people stopped. All the kids wanted to look at them. So again, very inexpensive. Oh, staff egg hunt. That's a good one. Whose plate is this? So that's a new one that a program did this year that I happened to be available to see. So they had everybody bring in a plate that they have, in their home that they eat their meal on, and they brought it in, and no one saw whose plates were whose. They gave them to the director, and then the director set the plates out. And you could do it during nap time. They happened to have a Friday that they didn't have children. And then people guessed whose plates belonged to who. And then they were able to have a meal together and talk about like, why that plate? For some people it was like, oh my gosh, I got married and this was the plates that, I loved. And other people, they were like, oh, I was at IKEA and I thought it was cute. Or, my grandma gave me these, or, there's always a story, and those stories create connectedness and belonging, which then create motivation and appreciation too. So that's a fun one. Doesn't really cost anything if you were already going to do a meal or that sort of thing. Kindness challenge. So the program that I've worked in has done a kindness challenge where there were certain kindness challenges, say hello to 2 people. There were that sort of thing. And for each thing, you got kind of different bucks. And then at the end of the week, they had things that parents had donated, and you got to spend your bucks on the things. Self-care challenge, that was one off teachers, paying teachers, and there's a bunch of them on there. They're great. They're super easy. Like do 10 minutes of exercise tonight, and you put your name in the bucket. And across a couple of weeks, like there's 14-day challenges. So I mean, it was literally like less than $10 for the teachers, paying teachers to get the challenge. And then whoever had the most in there got a candle or whatever it was. Retreat. So a lot of people do retreats. And the thing I'm hearing from staff is we want the retreat to be a real retreat, not a work disguised as work. So think about that. What would that mean? What's that mean for your staff? For some staff, that's something I worked really hard to be able to have staff retreats, and not that it was a staff training, but time to really be together, to learn about one another, ourselves, do vision boards, all that sort of stuff. Laughter yoga. So in our community, there is a laugh fest, it's called, and it's connected with the Cancer Society. But there was someone who came in and did laughter yoga. And again, not everybody wanted to come to it. It was in the evening, but super fun and funny for those who love that. Making, clipboards are really inexpensive from the Dollar Tree, and you can personalize them with like the Cricut, that you've got those staff who love to do that sort of thing. We've also done umbrellas for staff, and we found those before, like at the Dollar General, and like, thanks for sticking with us during a rainy day or the rainy time. I did walk and talks with my staff. And I found that sometimes when I could walk next to a staff member, we could have a much more powerful conversation than across from one another. And so the walk and talk, I just did them, off the copier with a little walk and talk. And it was good for a month, and they just signed up for a time, and we walked and talked for 30 minutes. And I have to say those were, that was really good. I feel like sometimes we didn't even talk about anything about work. Sometimes it didn't have anything to do with that. Oftentimes it had to do about other things that maybe I wasn't as attuned to. Um, tailgate with sports team shirts, that is always a big one. We actually have had like some people's partners come in and do the cooking for that, and people during rest time can come down and participate in the tailgate, and things like having a ping pong table, because you can just put those on a regular table, the ones that come on real easy. Journals with reflection prompts, and just asking once a month for those to happen. Okay, next slide. So other things, rest. We need to prioritize getting enough sleep and relaxation to be our best selves. And I really want you to think about that, to all the leaders out there. And so sometimes that's the best motivation and appreciation we can show to staff, is that you're giving them that time off, and that you want that to happen. Fun. We always talk about how being playful is really important. We do a whole piece on adultitis, that we need to beat adultitis, and how do you do that? And, how do you have really fun with staff and be silly with staff? And we actually do, a whole evening of that sort of thing, have cotton candy and some of those things. We also need to create. That's one of the things that we've sort of gotten away from sometimes, is being able to, do the painting party, or for our people who are real creative, being able to go do a kayak ride isn't their gig, but if you do that paint and sip or whatever, they're all in on it. Speak up. So it is really critical that we open up spaces that we feel like we can speak up in. And it was clear, that people who felt like they were heard, trusted, that really doesn't cost us anything. So really thinking about how do we do that? And that when we do that, it frees up space for us to do other things. So this is a really tough season, and we really have to be honest with ourselves and others, of reflect on our why. And actually that's kind of over the next couple weeks on my Instagram, I'm gonna do some, well, I guess kind of as I move into April, because of Week of the Young Child and Month of the Young Child, like, what is it? Why are we doing this work? And we know how critical it is, but it's okay too. Attrition can be good. Some staff need to leave your programs. And I know that is hard right now when staffing is super challenging, but some people are really vampires in your programs. And when they leave your program, they have a sigh of relief. I think that we have to think about that, like, how do we get above the noise right now and just really stay focused of what's one thing I can do this week? What's someone on the staff who I know gets this? And you'll be surprised how quick some of the things are. I think we, sometimes get, paralyzed by, what it's going to be. And I saw someone listen, I think it is how important it is to reflect. When we're reflective practitioners, our staff are reflective practitioners, and we have to talk that out loud sometimes to the people that we work with and mentor. I know, I was reflecting out loud with a student not too long ago, and she's like, you still have to do that? I was like, yeah, of course I have to do that. I have to remember my why too, and not get all hung up in all the noise. So something really important to think about. Okay, next slide. So gratitude. I'm going to wrap up because I know we're getting near the end here, but having a positive mindset, I know that the whole toxic positivity, I get it. Like, I've been there, with people, like, no, that I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, is there a mantra that you can sort of shift? I used to, when I would get ready to leave or go into a classroom, I held the door frame and just gave myself like a few seconds to say, I'm going to see the good, and focus myself. So really think about that. And of course, I do the, what are 3 great things that happened today? Clear plan and goals. So I'm going to go back to that. What's your plan? What's your goals? How are you going to make sure that this is the culture? What's one thing? So as we talked about journaling, it's so important that we dream about what we want, and think about that. The other thing is we need to celebrate more. We think about like, oh, we're going to celebrate if we're accredited or a 5-star, or if we can be fully staffed for one day or hire one person or whatever it is. We really need to really think about how do we celebrate, and celebrate often. That is probably one of the best things that I learned along the way, was I was always like, oh yeah, that was great, now move on to the next thing. And there's just so many things to be able to celebrate. And the more you do that, the more people get jazzed about it. And being able to think about like, what is it also as a leader that's going to fill your bucket, and do that. Really, I'm challenging you. Do it. Okay, I think probably we're about to the end. Okay, pop in. Obviously some of the things that you've done that have been. I know some of you've been really active in the chat. I appreciate that. So. Hopefully it's been helpful.
Jane, and that was fabulous. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information and so many great tangible tips and strategies for everyone to take away with them today. Not only did you just share so much valuable information, but Jane Ann, you created such a safe space for this past hour for directors and educators, parents to just share their ideas, share their concerns, help everyone on here also feel recognized and valued. So you did everything you're talking about today. So we appreciate you for creating this space for all of us today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That
was fabulous.
Thank
I hope
you.
you've been able to keep an eye on the chat. I know you have a little bit, but
yeah,
if you
I have.
see it all, if you see it all coming in right now. Okay, Jane Ann, I'm going to give you about 1 minute to catch your breath, have a sip of water. I'm going to pose a question out to the audience right now. We're going to do our weekly poll, and then we will go ahead and get started with just a couple questions before we wrap up for today. Okay, so I have just gone ahead and launched our questions of the day. So we do want to hear from all of you. And this is a question Jane Ann kind of asked as well, but what is your center currently doing to show appreciation for staff and investing in staff? And please do let us know if you're interested in learning about how Hi Mama can also support your staff and help your staff feel recognized for their work. In my role here at Hi Mama, I'm so privileged to get to chat with some amazing directors and administrators who are Hi Mama customers and hear about what's going on with them, hear about how Hi Mama is supporting them in their centers. And one of the top pieces of feedback we get is that being able to share the deep and meaningful learning that's happening in the classroom through Hi Mama. So in Hi Mama, every state and province's early learning framework or standards are built in. So you can show parents the deep learning that is happening. You can show parents that when you're reading a book, you're not just reading a book, that you are not a babysitter, you are not just playing all day. You can show that deep learning that is happening at your center. And one of the top pieces of feedback I've had from these conversations is that parents trust the educators more, they find the center more professional, and the educators feel more valued, which is the best piece of feedback we could have. So if you are interested in learning about how Hi Mama can support your educators in feeling more valued, again, Kaya will post that link in the chat so you can connect with us and we can see if Hi Mama will support you at your center. All right, Jane Ann, are you ready to go with a couple questions before we wrap up?
Sure.
Okay, amazing. So one question that I saw come in a bit of a ways back is actually just kind of going back to one of your first points about positive organizational climate at the center. And the question really was just if you could expand on that a little bit more and maybe provide some examples. I think they're just quite interested in that topic and wanted to go back to it a little bit.
Sure. So when I think about that, I think about how do you handle giving feedback to the staff? I think staff would look at it maybe different than families, organizational climate. So I'm going to talk about it from the staff perspective, since this is the topic. So how are you able to give feedback? And if you don't agree on something, how is that handled? We talk about gaslighting people and, all of that sort of thing. That happens, so how, when things don't go as planned, how do you do that? How do you communicate to staff? How do you live your mission and values? Your philosophy, if you say that you're a best practice program, but then you're not doing best practice, there's a lot of tension there. And so really thinking about what does that climate look like? Is it one where there's a lot of joy? If if in all of your materials you talk about it's playful and joyful, and yet when, people feel that disconnect. So, do the policies and procedures really live, or are they just on paper, and if someone feels that the leadership is overwhelmed, it doesn't give a lot of confidence in that the climate is really one in which you want to continue to be there. Does that help?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And would you say focusing on the climate is the first step before starting to show small acts of appreciation through candy bars and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So that's kind of why I was like, I had made an assumption that people would already be talking about that. And as I talked with lots of people about this topic over the last month, that was something I really realized, that some programs, the climate is just sort of toxic right now. So they really haven't had that. They haven't really built on respect and being able to give feedback and feel like what they do matters. So yes, I definitely feel like being able to take steps, and that's really hard to get that feedback and shift that, but you have to start. And that's that piece where I said in the beginning, just start. I would like to think that you could walk parallel with starting that and saying that and building the trust at the same time that you're beginning to do some things that are maybe more playful, and being able to do some things to build a sense of community, which can be, look a little different, but that sense of belonging, being able to really highlight teachers' gifts. And what I would say is, if you don't know what your teacher's gifts are, then you need to be spending a little bit more time either talking to the families, seeing what the children are, doing, that, when that teacher walks in and the children run and all give that teacher that big hug, like that might be the celebration. Like that's the picture, so yes, definitely. But I think sometimes you can't get too you can't not do any appreciation. I've talked to people who like nobody, like nobody's even said, like, thank you for showing up. And some people would say, well, why do we have to say thank you for showing up? Because we really need to keep the staff that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jane Ann, I know we are almost down to the wire, so we might have to keep this one quick, but I do want to get this last question out. But do you have 1 or 2 tips for directors who are dealing with unmotivated staff, who, when we motivate them, it does not reflect in their practice in the classroom?
Well, that's real. That's real. And I'd like to tell you that that's not, and there isn't a magic potion, but I would say you really either have to say, is this the right person for our company right now or program right now? But the other piece is, where do you find some opportunity to play and to beat that adultitis and to be able to say, what are they really good at? How do I highlight that? It's going to take some time though, if that hasn't really worked. The other thing is, ask them, what is it they need? Because maybe what you're doing isn't matching up with what they need. I think that was one of my big aha moments. It's like, well, they don't want that, but they love this. And so being able to shift my own idea of not doing the same thing for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Jane Ann, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. For anyone
Super.
who's questions that we did not get to today, we will be sharing ways to get in contact with Jane Ann and find her resources online. So keep an eye out for that show notes email. We will show you how to get in contact and keep following along with Jane Ann. Jane Ann, thank you so much for being here with us today, for your time, for your knowledge.
Sure.
We very much appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jane Ann.
See ya.
All right. Before we wrap up, I know we're about a minute over, so I appreciate everyone who's staying on, but just a quick reminder, you will get your show notes email with the slides and the recording by early next week, as well as your certificate. So again, do not worry if you do not see it this afternoon or tomorrow, you will absolutely receive it by early next week. And next week, same time, same place, Thursday, March 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be talking about how to create a positive work culture and quality leadership teams. So we're going to keep the ball rolling with maintaining a positive culture in our centers, and we really hope to see you there. Otherwise, as always, thank you so much to everybody for being here with us on this Thursday afternoon. We appreciate all of you and hope you have an absolutely wonderful week. Thank you so much.